Good morning. You can do better than that. Good morning. Thank you. See, I'm so happy that you're here, despite all the snow out there. And I think we still have some people coming in through registration right now, so scoot over a little bit if they need a space out there. And feel free to move up in front so that I'm not all alone up here, which I thought it would be all day when I looked out the window this morning. Surely the Brussels taxis didn't help me get more optimistic, but I know you know all about that. So welcome to this 7th edition of Masters of Digital, which of course is the flagship of Digital Europe. We do have, in fact, 3,000 registrations this year. Not all in here, not yet at least. We do have quite a few of you here, quite a few with us online, and I think we should start out by applauding everybody who's with us online so that they feel included in the good company here. Good morning to everybody online. Thank you. We have a busy schedule ahead of us, but just a few pieces of information before we get started on that. Don't hesitate to tweet and post stories and whatever you want on social media all day. We have, of course, set up a hashtag for that. It is hashtag MOD2023, and you can, well, use that all during the day. I also want to send out a large and warm thank you to our sponsors, without whom we wouldn't even be here. So I'm going to list them now, and after I've done that, we'll applaud them too. They are Accenture, Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, Nokia, Roche, Santander, Siemens, United Health Group, Teknikföretagen, and Tech Sverige. Thank you. You're going to work on that applause during the day when I'm the moderator. You might as well get used to it. So we're also aiming for an interactive conference here today, meaning that we're going to encourage you to ask questions and share your reflections over the day. And you're going to need Slido for that. I'm guessing that this being such a digital crowd, you all have your smartphone with you. So if you want to get it out, and just go to slido.com. The event hashtag is, again, hashtag MOD2023. And you can actually get it out now, because we're going to test it for a small exercise. Because if you all enter one word describing what you're looking forward to hearing here today, something that you feel like will inspire you, a theme word, a topic, whatever, that will draw up like a word cloud, and we will have an AI-generated drawing of that. So we'll actually have a drawing of your expectations of the conference. That'll be fun, I think. So get out the iPhones and punch just one word describing what you're looking forward to. I don't know if we are going to be able to get it up here, but otherwise I'm going to be able to see it here as you punch your words. And we also, I want to tell you, have an old-fashioned, or maybe actually a modern take of a microphone. It's down there. It's the one that you pitch around. And I have promised everybody that I will not try to throw it, because I throw like something you're not supposed to say, like that. So somebody else is going to pitch that around, and you can speak into it. And why don't we try that too? Would somebody please raise their hand and catch the microphone and just say their word into the microphone? Any volunteers? Yes. Anna, you can throw it. There you go.
Transformation.
Good. That will be entered into the word cloud as well. You can throw it. You can throw it to the next one. If there's anyone else, any other volunteers? Over here? Yes. So get those baseball skills up, Anna. Oh, good job. Oh, good picture got lost there, huh? Thank you. Okay, so...
Digital logistics.
Oh, good. Well, keep it going, and you can, of course, use that too when we're. Go ahead.
Hello from Ireland.
All right. Well, you can, of course, use that too when we do Q&As, and there will be Q&As during speeches and during panels today. Just wait for somebody to point to you to ask your questions, so we don't get a whole lot of chatting going on. So, do we have a drawing ready that we can see? Okay, let's try and see what it looks like. Oh. Interesting. What do we got there? Oh, a lot of people. They look like they're in school, don't they? That's kind of interesting. Well, we sort of are. Interesting. And I don't see the word cloud, so I can't mention the words that have generated this, but I'm sure we'll be able to get that up later on. Anyway, let's get started. Did I forget to introduce myself? I did. I'm Mette Vestergaard, and I'm a journalist from Denmark, and I'll be moderating this entire day and a few panels as well. So let's introduce the first speaker today, who, of course, is the president of Digital Europe. So now I need you to work on those applauding skills, because I want you to help me warmly welcoming Hilary Mine.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. Pretty exciting way to start the day. So let me give you a very warm welcome to the Masters of Digital 2023, Europe's top digital policy conference. It's really great to see you all here, but also to know that those of you are online. So again, inclusive. Let's say hello one more time to those online. Hello. Yay. Thanks. 2022 was a milestone year for Digital Europe. We now have 100 corporate members. It's a testament both to the growing importance of digital, but also to the sheer amount of new regulation in place or on the way. We've been referring to it as the tsunami of digital regulation, and it requires tremendous care and effort on all of our parts to ensure that it serves Europe as intended and without stifling our innovators and our economy. As we mark 1 year of the war in Ukraine, this year's theme is a resilient digital Europe in times of crisis. Against most expectations, the Ukrainians have resisted incredibly bravely for 12 months, and they've taught us a huge amount along the way. I'm incredibly pleased to welcome the Deputy Minister of Digitalization and Euro Integration, Valeria Jonen, who will be speaking later today about Ukraine's remarkable cyber skills and the digitalization boost that has happened during the war. It's a great honor to have her with us. Do I see her here? Yeah. She'll be here soon. This time next year, I don't know, but I had a little trouble in the snow this morning. This time next year, we'll be gearing up for the European elections, meaning the next 12 months are, of course, critical for the von der Leyen Commission's policy agenda. Over the next 2 days, you will hear top policy discussions, and I hope some of these terms show up in the word cloud, on artificial intelligence, the EU's data strategy, the health data space, cybersecurity, and digital's role in solving the energy crisis. Decisions on all of these are expected before the European elections in 2024. 2023 is also the year of skills. Digital skills are the baseline for everything you'll hear over the next few days. Nothing is more important for Europe's competitiveness, resilience, and cohesiveness of our societies. And today is International Women's Day. I have to say, my partner is Croatian, and if anyone here from Croatia, Slovenia, Slovakia, any Balkans? So for them, I always get a whole bunch of WhatsApps in the morning on International Women's Day, because in that part of the world, it's really celebrated by everybody significantly. It's a men thing, it's a women thing. Anyway, it's a day to celebrate the successes of women, and we have a fantastic diversity of speakers today, both from the public and private sectors. And I'm pleased to say that since putting the diversity guidelines in place, our executive board has 50% women, and these are all business leaders or experts in their field. We actually need to be careful now to ensure that we keep the male numbers up. But today is also a day to focus on what more needs to be done. And I work at Nokia. I've been a corporate executive at Nokia for a long time, and I can tell you we have work to do. We're making very slow progress on the number of female ICT specialists in Europe. It's up 2 percentage points to 19%. We set a target in our last manifesto that by 2025 we'd have 22%, and many would argue that's still pretty feeble. One PwC study also says that only 5% of people in technology leadership roles are women. Promoting talented women into tech roles is not good for women. It is good for Europe. It is good for the planet. We lack, as an example, up to 1 million cybersecurity specialists. We need women to be part of this workforce. So the KPI for female ICT specialists is just one example of the targets we set 3 years ago to assess our progress towards a stronger digital Europe. Our target date was 2025, and that's just around the corner. In fact, I was just remembering I was here on this stage, not part of Digital Europe at the time when we set those KPIs. So where do we stand with respect to the KPIs that we set? The picture is a bit mixed. We see the COVID effect as the number of citizens with high-speed broadband connections has risen sharply, up 50%. The use of online doctor's appointments has also doubled since 2018, and 60% of citizens now use e-government services, so that's great progress. These are all really positive progress on specific KPIs that we set in our last manifesto. Less positively, the percent of companies providing ICT training to employees is stagnating at 22%. On 5G, we know that we're still very far from our rollout targets, and we also see that although the number of EU unicorns is on the rise, their overall global share remains around 13%, and that includes the UK. On that subject, we will later today find out the winner of our prestigious Digital Europe Future Unicorn Award. At least 3 nominees of our award in previous years have gone on to actually become billion euro valuation unicorns. So it's been pretty effective in that sense. This year, we had a new approach. We had a jury of investors, business people, and policymakers, and I want to thank all of them, deciding the overall winner. I was personally very honored and humbled to be part of that group, and I can just say that the standard this year amongst the unicorns was really impressive. It was a tough set of decisions for the jury. If those companies are anything to go by, Europe's future as a tech hotspot is bright. It's by nurturing our best and brightest to become successful global businesses that will help ensure our long-term economic success. And now I'd like to turn it over to Digital Europe's Director General, Cecilia Bonefeld, to introduce our brand new publication on boosting Europe's digital resilience. So let me wish you an amazing day. Cecilia, over to you.
So let me start by maybe saying a few words on International Women's Day. So we are talking about how important it is, but why? So why is it important to have women in tech? Why is it important to have men in tech? And why is it important to have diversity? I have the honor of leading a team that we have around 36 different nationalities. We have equal men and women at all levels. We come from 5 different continents. And I'm proud to call it maybe the best policy team in the world. Why? Because they all have one thing in common. They can collaborate and they respect each other's diversity and they are able to learn from each other. And that is exactly why it's important to have more women, but also more diversity in your team. Second of all, if tech is the biggest transformer of society on how we teach, on how we learn, on how we work, what does that mean to the technology we develop if there are not equal men and women and diversity in there? It means that the technology will be made by one type of people, typically men, for one type of people, typically also men. So that diversity and actually getting the ethics into the technology, this is why it's important. Second of all, prosperity comes with technology. So if we wanted, a spread of wealth throughout different types of people in the society, well, then we need more female entrepreneurs and more females in tech. I can tell you that only 1.7% of investment capital goes to women-led companies. But as you will see today, we are committed to boost that, and we actually have been very lucky to have a lot of female-led companies in our Unicorn Award this year. I'm not supposed to talk about this, but I just want to make sure that I kind of make a mark on this very important day of Women's Day. And remarkable enough, as Hillary said, she's leading a board of 50% women, and we started off today being role models, hopefully, for women in tech in general. Okay, so I was looking at the cloud, this word cloud, and out came an AI-generated picture of girls in a classroom. And maybe it's run with the reasons I saw the small words. One said ethics, women, transformation, digital, and many other words. So happy to see that even the AI is actually generating something that makes a mark on Women's Day. So let's talk about one other thing, resilience. Hillary talked about how we are becoming more and more online. We see some of our numbers being boosted in connectivity, digital transformation, but it also brings a different view on digital. I mean, being connected, being in cyberspace, being based on technology in general, it brings different vulnerabilities and risks. It brings opportunity. With opportunities and transformation comes risks and the need for further resilience. I would say right now, as Ursula von der Leyen said, I mean, digital is absolutely in the front line. There is no doubt that what we have seen with the hybrid war in Ukraine, the battlefield is not only physical anymore. We have cyberspace. Infrastructure is playing a major role. What happened was that Russia moved in, and they cut all the cable and they bombed all the radio stations, so they were lacking connectivity. What does that mean? If you don't have connectivity, you cannot communicate. You cannot tell people which way the refugee needs to go. You cannot communicate between people to tell what the dangers are. So all of a sudden, the physical and digital infrastructure became a major component in the digital resilience of Ukraine. So what did they do? Well, they called private sector. They called us and they said, please can you help us to get components, to get actually our digital infrastructure more resilient and rebuilt. And DigitalEurope was one of the first ones to send to all the member states saying, please can you trigger the emergency mechanism of the EU also to cover ICT equipment so we can actually send ICT equipment to them. And as you might know, right now we are gathering as a second wave hundreds of thousands of IT devices. So if anybody of you today has a spare phone, a spare PC, please let the staff know, and we are very happy to take your devices. And here we have the presentation on. And so another thing that we need to look at is the energy crisis. So all of a sudden, the connectivity is also a part of how we need to manage risk on the energy crisis. Well, first of all, if we had implemented digital technologies in, for example, something like buildings 10 years ago, we would have been able to bring down the energy consumption with 60%. Meaning that we would have been less dependent, we would have spent less energy, and we would have been less vulnerable to something as the energy crisis. How can we formulate regulation and initiative and investments that proactively makes us implement these technologies? All this is possible. So again, vulnerabilities on energy is very closely connected actually to digital. Natural disasters. Well, we all know that we have one of the biggest natural disasters in Turkey and Syria happening at the moment. And, well, I always say, if we can fly to the moon, how come we cannot predict this? How come we are unable to basically evacuate people and make sure that we can take care of that before it happens. Well, if you ask me, digital investment should be put on these areas. We need to make sure that we can prevent and do as much as we can, as we actually also can prevent some of the future natural disasters as lack of water and many other things. Again, it's back to proactivity. We have a tendency of regulating towards preventing something bad to happen, but on consumers only. But let's look at the big challenges. How can we proactively, through incentives, drive innovative policy making that actually helps the businesses and the society to develop some and prevent some of these big disasters? And maybe we need policymakers also embrace different type of peoples into their shaping of regulation to make it much more proactive. For sure, the answer to many of these challenges are found within private sector. We have the skills, we have the tools, we have the knowledge. So somehow help us also to implement these solutions into the big challenges and how we regulate and how we invest. Supply chain, all of a sudden we saw the chip shortage. How many have thought about this? I mean, we have been one of the leading powers on innovation, universities, investment in excellence in the microchips. But not many of the microchips was produced in Europe. And all of a sudden, with COVID and with the war in Ukraine, we were lacking chips. All of a sudden, it came like, what's inside of chips? A certain type of raw materials that was needed, that was not present in Europe either. So how do we make sure that we look at, resilience of supply chain, that we have partners with whom we can work on this, that we actually know what is inside the components, and that we are not only looking at excellence. We have had a tendency of investing in excellence in Europe, but forgetting about having the resilience of supply chains and supply chain in Europe also. Financial crisis, well, the single biggest creator of value is digital. We boost any sector in the world on their innovation, on being more efficient. So how do we make sure that also in the financial crisis that we think digital into the resilience of the financial crisis? We have had huge inflation rates and others, and we need to think about this resilience and how we can make that also more digital in the future. Let me jump to what we did. So Digital Europe started a Digital Resilience Council, I think a bit more than a year ago now. And we have just published a paper that is called Digital Resilience, the Digital Frontline. So what is digital resilience? Well, it's the society's capacity to use digital technologies to prevent and face crisis. Fundamental crisis that we just had two of, where we played a major role. So let's look at the 4 pillars of digital resilience. We are looking at cybersecurity, cyber governance, digital infrastructure, supply chain resilience, and not least fast-track procurement on critical and emerging technologies, EDTs. So let's look at them one at a time. Or before that, actually, let's see how many of you guys actually was exposed to some of the training that maybe everybody should have in their life. Let's take a poll first. Can everybody who has somehow received cybersecurity training or a briefing or some kind of learning on cybersecurity, within the last year, raise their hand? Oh my God, this is very nice. It's like half of the room or something like this. Okay, so let me ask you one follow-up question. Do you know what to install on your PC or your devices to protect yourself? And how many have actively installed something on their devices? A little bit less, like a third. And remember, everybody in this room, you are digital, right? Well, if you ask, go to a family party and ask them, I'm sure that you will be the only one, or maybe one more raising their hand, right? But I'm really surprised by the large number, but we have a big job to do there. we are lacking around 1 million cybersecurity specialists in Europe. I mean, we learn that, many, many things in school, but we don't learn to code, only universal language in the world, and we, for many cases, do not learn how to protect ourselves in the digital world. If you ask many of the children, do you actually know your rights in privacy? They will not know them. Do you know how to protect your devices? They will not know them. Do you know how to code, a basic string and how it works? They will not know. We have a long way to go. Okay, so cybersecurity, as you see here, a lot of worrying numbers. Actually, one of the sectors that has suffered the most attacks is critical infrastructure, as you know, but actually also healthcare. A lot of hospitals have been attacked, and attacking vulnerable people in vulnerable situations is at the edge of actually what we would call real warfare. So, how can we actually bring up the resilience and the cybersecurity in Europe? First of all, as I said before, let's face it, most of the cybersecurity skills, most of the cybersecurity tools is done by private sector. So how can we actually get a council that is a standing body that can advise on European cyber resilience? We have a very good idea of that, and we started the Resilience Council actually as an inspiration for that. Second of all, how can we have a collaboration, a standing collaboration between private and public sector on cybersecurity? The Commission is now coming out with a cyber defense policy and plan, and one of the elements will actually be a trusted vendor list, like a cyber reserve of people and companies that they can call in for a crisis situation. So a very positive move in the right direction. Interoperability on common standards on cybersecurity. So we make sure that we can work together and that our data can be transferred and then we understand each other's messages. It sounds like the basic thing, but it's actually not the case at the moment. New network of cyber campuses. Actually, one of the things that we have been working on in Digital Europe with our NTAs, we have 42 associations in the European territory, also, so it's EU+, it's also UK, it's Turkey, it's Norway, and we are actually looking to have cyber campuses with training, with information sharing between private sector and public sector. And we've been inspired from what has been done in France, in Paris, where this cyber campus already exists. So this is one of our major targets for the following years. Last but not least, compulsory computer sciences in every school. We need to teach our younger generations how to create both resilience, but also create innovation in tech. You know, the ones with the skills lead the future. And if Europe is not in the game, well, somebody else will be. So that is absolutely crucial, and maybe long-term the most crucial things for us to have on resilience. So here, just a picture of our Resilience Council that we had on cyber governance, coming out with these recommendations, and I thank both the Commission, Marina from the Parliament, a lot of our private sector members for actually tapping in with their best specialists on how this can be done. So let's look at digital infrastructure. Well, as I said, we saw how digital is playing a major role in resilience. If you're not able to communicate, you're not able to learn, you're not able to have your hospital functional. And right now we are gathering a lot of devices for Ukraine. We have seen 50% of internet infrastructure in Ukraine destroyed by the Russians in 22, and we have seen a 40% increase in cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. A lot is being done already. You know the implementation of the NIS2 directive, still a long way to go for some countries, but let's get that done so we have a common understanding on how we protect our critical infrastructure in Europe. Two things I wanted to highlight are the data embassies. So this comes from actually Estonia. What Estonia did when they were on a heavy attack is that they made data embassies. They understood that if you have cloud, you can actually have your data in multiple places, so you are able to close down certain things and have backups, different places in different countries. So having cloud solution and being able to have data embassies in different countries and protected areas, is really one of the resilient things that we need to look at for the future. Boost connectivity. Of course, without being connected, we cannot communicate. So safe infrastructure is absolutely key. And last but not least, on the top, resilience of component supply. So let's look at the third pillar. Okay, so procurement. So 50% of the GDP of Europe is public sector money. If SMEs do not have access to that, they will never be able to scale. Our procurement systems are designed in countries, in different pools of money, and if you get into the countries, even smaller pools of money. But what does digital need? Digital needs scalability. So how can we make sure that, and I have the inspiration from the Diana in NATO, the NATO program Diana, which I've been one of the co-writers on. Once you get in to procurement in one country, you have access to all the other countries in the EU. Each time we launch a tender, we launch it as a pan-European tender. If we don't do that, we'll not have scalability. Why don't we earmark 25% of all public procurement money for SMEs? Something that they did in UK a long time ago, and the reason why they have even more unicorn as everybody else in Europe, at least one of the reasons. So let's look at the procurement system and make sure that we break down the barriers of scaling in Europe. So last but not least, let me say the 4 takeaways of this resilience paper. So public-private partnerships in resilience is absolutely needed. Everybody is working towards the same target here. There is no private sector not with public sector. We need to work on collaboration, on skills, on procurement, on actually innovation on ground and common supply chains. Skills control the future, or the ones with the right skills control the future. Let's make sure that we enable and we take ourselves serious. I mean, it's not that digital came 2 years ago. It's now 25 years of being more and more digital. We cannot afford to not have the younger generation actually with the right skills. Innovation, to me, it equals resilience and security. If we do not have a large pool of SMEs and large companies, for that matter, scalable big companies also in Europe, in collaborating and innovating here, we will not be able to be resilient of the future. And last but not least, let's make sure to collaborate with like-minded to make Europe more resilient. Thank you so much, and I know that I'm over time. I see this lady looking at me. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you learned a little bit. Thank you.